Hello, it's Dr. George here. I'm a family practitioner in Melbourne, Australia, and I thought I'd put together a bit of a video series to help explain all about diabetes. What we know in the world is that the incidence of diabetes is on the increase, and the good thing is that it's actually in 90% of cases a preventable disease. And if you are diagnosed with it, there are many, many ways that you can manage it, and which is one of the reasons I've put together this site to help other people who are living with diabetes, but also some of my own patients as well. I suppose the biggest question I get is, what is diabetes? Diabetes is a chronic disease. That's a disease that lasts a long time. It's not like a cold where it might come and go and then you're better. If you've been diagnosed with diabetes, it's generally something you're going to be living with for some time. Now, the issue with diabetes is that your body is not able to deal with sugar. What normally happens inside your body is the food that you eat gets broken down into either fat, protein, or sugar. The sugar is brought into the bloodstream, and from there, one of the organs of the body, the pancreas, produces a substance called insulin. Insulin is responsible for bringing the sugar out of the bloodstream and into your muscles where you can use it, but also into your brain where you can use the sugar as a form of energy as well. In diabetes, the function of insulin is not working. Either that there isn't enough insulin there, or that your body is not actually able to use insulin in the standard way. Now, a lot of people say, how will I know if I have diabetes? Well, the classic symptoms of diabetes are people are very, very thirsty, they're passing urine all of the time, and generally they feel quite crook. Some people also have blurring of vision. There are other things like poorly healing wounds and other things like that. In the younger person who's been diagnosed with what's called type 1 diabetes, there can be what's called a diabetic coma. This can be life-threatening, and it's very important that it's followed up with by a doctor. And I will actually be talking about that in one of the further videos. But for the first time, a lot of people say, diabetes, isn't that like a young kid that has to use insulin? I'm 57, what does that mean for me? Well, the thing is that there are two different forms of diabetes, what's called type 1, or what used to be called insulin-dependent diabetes, or type 2, which is called non-insulin-dependent diabetes as well. Now, I just wanted to explain the difference between these two. Type 1 diabetes is a disease where your pancreas is not able to make insulin. So without the insulin, you can't get the sugar out of your bloodstream. Normally, this will happen in somebody who's younger, usually around about the ages of, from 10 through to the teens, sometimes earlier, and older people can get it as well. Type 1 diabetes normally comes on very, very quickly. You'll suddenly be feeling very sick, very thirsty, passing a lot of urine. The issue is that your body is not creating enough insulin to deal with your sugar load. These type of diabetics generally are treated with insulin, which is usually in the form of an injection. The good thing is, though, that it's only about 5 to 10% of people with diabetes that require insulin, that have a type 1 diabetes. What we are finding now is that 90% of the people in the world who develop diabetes actually have type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is that your body still creates insulin, generally not quite enough, but also your body is becoming resistant to the insulin that it's creating. So basically what happens is as you get older, your body becomes more and more used to the high sugar levels, and it's almost like the pancreas is becoming exhausted. So as I said, it happens in the older generations, sometimes 50, 60, 70. They say that about 15% of people over the age of 70 will have diabetes. And as I said, the pancreas is starting to get tired. It's not able to produce as much insulin, and the insulin it does produce, it doesn't work as well. The interesting thing about type 2 diabetes is that many people don't have any symptoms at all, and because of that, it can take up to 5 to 6 years before people actually get diagnosed with diabetes. This is why I always encourage my patients to be having regular contact with their GP to screen for these sort of things. So how do we actually test for diabetes? Most of the time when you go to the doctor, when they organise a blood test, one of the things that we check for is the glucose in your blood. And it's normally within a certain range. And if we're doing the blood without you fasting, we can certainly see a random blood sugar. If the blood sugar glucose is high at that time, your doctor might ask you to return and to do a particular blood test when you have not had anything to eat for around about 10 hours. That gives us a very good idea that if you have fasted and if you have not had any food for over 10 hours and your glucose is still high, that's a very good indicator that you may be living with diabetes. Another test that is sometimes done is called a glucose tolerance test. Basically what this involves is that you fast from the night before, then you will go in to have a blood test done, and they will give you a drink of a sweet liquid. It tastes a little bit like lemonade. From there, they will keep you in the rooms for 2 hours, and at that time, 2 hours later, they will test your blood. That way we know what your sugar was to start in the morning and what your body actually does with the sugar when it's given. So we know that for most people that the glucose will cause a spike in your blood sugar and then it will come down as your body releases insulin. If you have diabetes, we know that 2 hours later after one of these drinks is that the sugar will generally stay a lot higher. That's a good indicator of diabetes. And if that test was to come back positive, the doctor would be certainly willing to talk to you about ways that we can help bring your sugar down and to help your body tolerate sugar a lot better. Another test that you may have been heard about is called a HbA1c. It's a bit of a technical term, but basically what we know is that people who have high levels of sugar in their blood, it tends to make changes in their red blood cells. And what this does is that it measures the amount of changed red blood cells in your system. If that number is high, it gives us a bit of a picture of what your blood sugar has been like for the past 3 months. I suppose the question is, having high sugar, that doesn't really mean much to me. Why is it that we actually want to test for diabetes? What we know is that diabetes can cause many different changes in the body, and I'd like to talk to you about that on the next page. There's a link below. Simply click that link and I'll take you through to the next video where I explain why doctors are so wanting to help reduce the amount of people living with diabetes. Give it a click and I'll see you on the next page.